everyone, welcome back. So I'm a little surprised by this one. It's definitely another one of the comfort Incarnons. Nothing crazy, but it just works. This is also an Incarnon that has a ridiculous amount of ammo. Even on a full build, you can shoot for 10 to 15 seconds or so non-stop before it runs out. And because of how strong it is, you won't even be shooting it like that. Short spritz are where it's at. It's another Ricochet DPS pistol like Lato and Bronco Incarnon, except it's a literal bullet hose. There's also quite a few other interesting quirks, so let's get into it. As always, these weapons are the second generation of Incarnons shipped with the Duviri Paradox update. The only way to get them is from Steel Path's Circuit mode. After clearing the quest and having Steel Path unlocked, you need to pick two of the weapons on rotation to work towards on Steel Path's Circuit mode. Clearing rounds gives you points to point tiers. Reach the appropriate point tier and return to the screen to claim your loot. The Incarnon Genesis adapters have a rotating 6-week schedule with the full details in this video's description. If you do not get the adapter for your weapon before weekly reset, it will not reappear for 6 weeks. If you get the adapter, you can use it on your appropriate weapon and Caballero and the Chrysalis whenever you want. Keep in mind, attaching the adapter requires Duviri open world materials and has unlock requirements on the Incarnon tree perks, just like the original Incarnon weapons from the Angels update as well. Dual Toxocyst gets insane buffs with its Incarnon adapter. The weapon holds a special spot in my heart from back in the day. Tons of nostalgia, so I had to pick it. The one big thing we wanted was making it full auto on Frenzy mode. With Nel Prime patched ages ago to become full auto and many other viable options, it was about time. If you didn't know, all semi-autos in the game are soft capped at 10.0 fire rate even if the arsenal screen shows higher. The game physically does not allow you to shoot semi-auto guns faster than that, so not only was Dual Toxo Carpal Tunnel Simulator in the past, but it also met the fire rate cap fate all semi-autos had, maybe a little damage bump too. But today, what we got instead was a whole new weapon. The Dual Toxos changed so much for the better. I wish the Ricochet gimmick was more interesting, but DE definitely succeeded in reviving an older weapon for today's era. Dual Toxo Incarnon mode is more of the same, but with full auto Ricochet rounds, now boasting higher crit chance and damage, higher status, 4.5 times higher fire rate. It also retains the Frenzy buff mechanic on headshot that grants infinite ammo for 3 seconds, adds plus 100% Toxin like a mod, removes all recoil and plus 150% fire rate. It can be refreshed when already active, but does not stack. Modding any kind of fire rate on already makes it bypass the previous 10.0 fire rate soft cap. There is another interesting gimmick unique to Ricochet weapons. Punch through works uniquely on them. Normally, punch through on explosive weapons make them not explode until it runs out of punch through, or they completely ignore punch through and explode on first hit anyways. Chaining beam weapons like Nucor will only chain on the first enemy hit, and the punch through targets also get hit, but will not create their own chains. The Ricochet rounds on Dual Toxocyst has a 5 meter AoE, are hit scan, prioritize headshots automatically, and hit up to 2 other enemies per shot. This is important because look what happens when I shoot down this group with punch through. That enemy on the side that got hit, and they are much further away than 5 meters from the first enemy. Every enemy hit with your main shot along your punch through line will create ricochet rounds, making punch through extremely important on this weapon. Hitting 2 enemies literally produces 2 times the ricochet rounds, hitting 5 enemies produces 5 times the ricochet. So always put punch through on Dual Toxocyst. Also, because the entire gimmick revolves around ricochets, and it is impossible to make a ricochet hit the original target, this weapon is specialized for horde killing. Even in the case of disruption, you should still be building this weapon with punch through to kill hordes. Using this to kill the Demolist basically removes its Incarnon gimmick completely, as ricochet rounds are useless for killing VIP targets. For anti-synergies, because this weapon literally has no unique beneficial interactions, let's see. Zephyr. Shooting the tornadoes removes all ricochet from the weapon and actively nerfs damage. Shooting enemies will not cause ricochets to hit tornadoes, because they are not prioritized as targets. Mag. Shooting into Magnetize works like normal, nothing changes. Xata. Shooting a Xata bubble... wait. What's happening? It's pretty simple, so ricochet rounds are restricted to only hitting enemies within a bullet attractor bubble. Because Magnetize is massive, Dual Toxo can still ricochet to hit enemies inside. Xata on the other hand creates tiny bubbles, unless there are other enemy body parts overlapping the previous Xata bubble with their own bubble. Dual Toxo will not be able to ricochet to hit the other enemy. Basically, because the radius of Xata's bubble is so small, this weapon sucks with it. You would have to pre-prime all enemies with bubbles first when you group them before shooting dual Toxocyst. This completely defeats the point of a spray and pray bullet hose that wants to get constant headshots, so do not use this with Xata. Finally, this is the big one. Enemies in a ragdoll state cannot be hit by ricochets. This means Tornado, the non-augmented version, Funnel Clouds is fine. Airburst, Larva, Coil Horizon, Pull, Vortex, Sevagoth Shadows Pull, or basically any grouping tool that isn't Magus Anomaly or Ensnare will prevent ricochet shots from hitting any of the other targets in the clump when you shoot in. So do not use ragdoll setups with this pistol. Okay, but how about the Incarnon perks? This time, it's super obvious with a little bit of math. So let's get right into it. Perk 1, you shoot heads to build Incarnon meter and alt fire to activate it. You can even activate without full meter and it will grant percent ammo equivalent to how much of the bar is filled. Incarnon mold holds 270 shots, and is unaffected by magazine or ammo max perks or mods. Remember that you can keep shooting the head hitbox of an enemy immediately after they die before they fall, and it will still count as headshots to build the Incarnon meter. Frenzy buffs carry from the normal to Incarnon mode if it was active when you transform. Frenzy buffs proc naturally, since you need to headshot regardless to charge Incarnon mode. The Ricochet rounds of dual Toxocyst also prioritize headshots whenever possible, drawing a straight line to enemies, letting them re-trigger Frenzy easily. This mission here, I got 1,000 kills in 10 minutes with 400 of them being headshot kills. I was getting headshot kills, therefore, every 1.5 seconds, meaning Frenzy was re-procking whether I wanted it or not from Ricochet rounds and easily maintaining deadhead stacks. Perk 2. This one has people pretty divided, so I will answer this one once and for all with cold hard math. Luckily, the innate damage buffs actually apply to the weapon. I can't say the same for Hoplite Virtue on Lex, which is still bugged to do nothing. Anyways, what's also important is that when GunCO is additive on a weapon, it ignores this innate damage buff, and dual Toxocyst is confirmed to be additive instead of multiplicative GunCO. The increased damage by plus 50 or plus 60? To GunCO, these don't exist. That means it will base the extra damage off of dual Toxocyst's original 75 damage. This left side perk conditional effect is confirmed to work like copy-paste GunCO. So Carnage Rain also ignores the increased damage by plus 60. How much does this actually matter? Let's assume no external primers. A typical dual Tox build can proc IPS and one extra element, since the Toxin from Frenzy buff combines with everything. I assume the weakest weapon Arcane, Merciless for just plus 360% base damage and no extra strings attached. The weapon innate has 100%, Merciless adds 360. GunCO will always be on the weapon as it is stronger than this perk, granting supposedly 120% per status effect. However, we know it scales GunCO off base 75 instead of 135, so really GunCO only has 55.6% of its intended effect. This means it actually only gives 55% of the 120 per status, or 66.7% bonus base damage per status. 4 status effects means 266.7 bonus, so now we have 100 plus 360 plus 266.7 for 727% base damage scaling. Now how much does Carnage Rain add? 33% damage per status, but we know the perk also uses base 75 instead of 135, so it's really just 18.3% bonus base damage per status. 4 statuses means plus 73%. So we go from 727 to 800%, or an 11% total damage boost. Just 11%. Now how much does Fever Frenzy give? Let's completely ignore the base damage by plus 50 for a moment. I'm not even gonna bother to calculate GunCO because it isn't necessary. Galvanized Multishot grants plus 230% at max stacks. The weapon innately shoots 100% bullets. This means fully stacked, you're shooting 330% bullets. Fevered Frenzy increases multi-shot by up to 100%, pushing us to 430%. That is a 30.3% total damage increase compared to having 0 stacks active. Also, not only does Fevered Frenzy increase damage like Carnage Rain, but unlike just bonus raw damage, multi-shot also increases the amount of chances you have at status procs, by literally increasing the amounts of bullets shot. Now you might wonder, isn't it annoying to activate this perk, 20 ability casts to max it out? Well, see, going to Operator counts as an ability cast for this perk, so do this 20 times to max out the perk for free. It lasts until you die after all, but 20 times? Annoying? Sure. So at what point does this perk match Carnage Rain's plus 11% total damage bonus? At 7 transference stacks. Yes, just 7. Keep in mind the multi-shot also lets you charge Incarnon meter faster. It also literally saves Incarnon ammo for killing since multi-shot does not count to your ammo limit. Also, if you play the game normally, it really isn't that hard to reach 7 ability casts. So yeah, that's that. Pick Fever Frenzy, always. Perk 3. Toxo has 12 shots in mag. It only requires 2 headshots at most to charge Incarnon mode, and you get all magazine reloaded whenever you exit Incarnon. Therefore, you never have to reload this weapon, and the magazine will never go empty. This means Evolved Autoloader and Ready Retaliation are both useless. Marksman's Hand is our only choice, though we already barely have recoil. This can help if you miss your first non-Incarnon headshot, allowing you to line up a follow-up before the Frenzy minus recoil perk kicks in. Perk 4 is also simple. The middle perk grants Toxin damage and is by far the most boring. Remember how I said punch through is super important on Toxocyst? Our left and right choices are increased innate crit chance and extra punch through. Mods can fix punch through. Mods cannot fix shit-based crit. Therefore, we will pick Commodore's Fortune always and fix punch through with the Seeker mod instead. Interestingly, humanoids need 0.6 meters to punch through them. This means you only need 1.8 meter to punch through 3 enemies and hit a 4th. A rank 4 Seeker reaches 1.8 meters and saves you 1 mod capacity. Only quadrupeds require 1 meter punch through, but the only quadrupeds in the game are wildlife and infested chargers. These all have 0 armor and you would have no problem killing them with a single shot instantly so you can shoot past them. Builds today are extremely simple. Because of the quirks of the weapon, we know it is specialized horde killing. While it can kill Demolus and Acolytes, it is still much better killing trash fodder. We know it doesn't work with Zephyr's Tornadoes, Xata's Whisper, or any kind of Ragdoll ability. It also does not benefit or lose on anything with Magnetize, therefore we only have basic DPS builds. Just remember to always mod punch through to take advantage of the unique mechanics on Ricochet rounds. There are 4 builds today, and the only thing that really changes are the Banes and Elements, so let's dive right in. For all builds today, I'm assuming Arcane Velocity and Anemic Agility, but you do not need both, and if you use Arcane Velocity, you have the option to skip Anemic Agility. The best in-slot replacement each time is Sharpened Bullets instead of Creeping Bullseye or Prime Pistol Gambit. But if you want pretty constant orange crits, you can take the second crit mod to stack alongside Galvanized Crosshairs instead of Sharpened Bullets. The gap is 11.19 times normalized damage compared to 10.83 times, which is only a 3.2% total damage loss, so use whichever one makes you feel better. Also, remember that Amalgam Firax's body count exists, which can let you safely skip Anemic Agility while retaining part of its effects. Firax Incarnon is also an actually good melee, if you have that, so feel free to check the video at the top right for its full breakdown. Build 1. Raw Corrosive. This is your basic spray and pray. This weapon gets headshot kills constantly even without trying as the Ricochet prioritizes it, so we opt for Galvanized Crosshairs. This boosts the 31% base crit on Incarnon mode to 130.2. Keep in mind, you do have to be ADS to benefit from the bonus plus 200%. It's worth 62% of your total crit. Otherwise, use Prime Pistol Gambit, or Creeping Bullseye. It will still get you to roughly 90%. Toxocyst has a habit of overkilling in single shots to just 2 or 3, and the minus fire rate from Creeping Bullseye only results in better ammo economy. Prime Target Cracker because big crits. Primed Expel is best in slot, but we are on a raw damage build, so this only has 1.55 times damage multiplier. A Lone Electric mod combines with Frenzy plus 100% Toxin to get Corrosive. Fire rate is king, so Anemic Agility, but that's the flex slot as I mentioned. Seeker rank 4, again with 0 capacity remaining as I mentioned earlier. And of course, GunCO, because even without a primer, it still grants plus 288 base damage with 4 procs, as well as more status chance. Deadhead up because ricochets on dual Toxocyst automatically try to headshot, allowing you to maintain this effortlessly for 1.3 times more damage on headshots. You should be aiming roughly head level on your main target too. Build 2 is just the same build, but on gas. You replace Convulsion with Scorch. This reaches 100% status and is meant to be used with an Ensnare build. Frenzy Toxin buff combines with Scorch to make gas. While bullet hoses usually aren't that good for gas builds since gas caps at 10 stacks, Toxocyst still works. This is because it actually has high damage per shot, 75 or 125 innate damage depending on GunCO, but base 4.5 fire rate with high status and crits. If you have issues getting headshot kills, consider running Prime Pistol Gambit or Creeping Bullseye instead. The Ricochet rounds have full damage scaling and also benefit from GunCO, meaning shooting one enemy produces gas clouds on 3 enemies at once. This rips apart enemies and most specifically is the only way to instantly kill acolytes with Ensnare. No other element on dual Toxocyst can do this, and this is because of the sheer raw damage from overlapping gas clouds overpowers the armor and damage attenuation. Yes, acolytes have damage attenuation, it's just a bit different from Lich's sisters and Archons. Seeker also helps to aim at the acolyte if it's hiding behind enemies. Deadhead still, because ricochets prioritize headshots on this weapon. Build 3 is a Corpus DPS build. As I said, the only thing that changes is your element slot. Rerun pure Toxin to stack with a Frenzy buff. The Ricochet rounds easily clear out Corpus units because, well, no armor and shield bypass. Just keep in mind you need actual headshots to proc Frenzy in building Incarnon, and this does not work if you shoot at MOA weak spots. Raw damage DPS, so Crosshair still works really well since most kills are still going to be coming from initial Toxin damage and not the procs. Punch through is super important as I always mentioned with how Ricochet rounds work, and honestly, since they're technically unarmored, Galvanized Shot usually won't be able to kick in. But for anything that doesn't die, it will ramp up to 4 status procs quickly, so don't worry. Deadhead's still easy free procs, so don't run anything else. Build 4 is your generic full strip viral build, such as against Grenier. Keep in mind this does not work against Deimos enemies who are largely immune to viral procs, and some even being completely immune to viral damage altogether. Same modding as always, with deep freeze and combining with frenzy buff to make viral damage. Most things die instantly after the armor strip, just spray and pray. Anything that survives gets viral procced and will now take a ton more damage. Cheers! If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always, as soon as possible like I've done with the Duviri update. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. Don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? And that'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.